Uh, Good evening and welcome. I just had the chance to welcome the Advanced Studies students earlier this afternoon, and really this is now a kind of second welcome. I think there are some of them who are still in the MDE meeting, and they'll be joining us in a little while. This is a really wonderful opportunity for us to be together, and for us also to hear tonight from Marc and Matthias, all the way from Paris. A few months ago, I was really lucky to be able to sit down with them in their office for a couple of hours and to see some of their projects and see what they're doing. I think we are all in for a wonderful, wonderful talk, because there's sort of the combination of one of them being a philosopher and the other one being an architect, and now the philosopher is an architect and the architect is a philosopher. It speaks of the kind of collaboration and the way in which we really in the school promote questioning and clearly just sort of thinking about the sort of everyday situation of our cities. They have found many exciting ways to really think about the built environment in wonderful and unusual ways. But John May is going to make the proper introduction, but I just wanted to be here and welcome you all again. So, John, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mohsen. I was thinking about how to introduce this, and I've done several of these open house lectures now in the past few years, and I'm coming to realize the open house lecture is a difficult lecture in some ways. It's harder than a departmental lecture because, as all of you who are here visiting right now, you realize how diverse, I mean, just from the thesis presentations, the short thesis presentations in MDes that some of you just sat through, the diversity of thought and interest. And we had Rossi Bradotti here a couple weeks ago, a very well-known feminist scholar and philosopher. And she gave this rousing lecture here in Piper, and she said at one point, she said, "The future is trans." And she meant it in every sense of the word, and especially she meant transdisciplinary. And I think that in that sense, the people that we invite in for this particular lecture, because of how broad the interests of this audience we know it's going to be on a night like tonight, they have to be people who are both interdisciplinary, but also transdisciplinary, meaning they have to think across established fields that are solid and feel solid and stable in some ways, but then they also have to be willing to push at the boundaries of those and transcend those and transgress those in many ways. And so I think our guests tonight are really perfect examples of that. And you know, if I think back over the past few years, the speakers, I mean, we think about Irma Boom, who she calls herself a bookmaker, but really she's a philosopher, she's a scholar, she's a designer in every sense. And Patricia Urquiola, same. And so that's sort of the legacy of the open house lecture, just to give you a sense of the atmosphere of this. And I think our guests tonight completely fit that mold. AWP Office for Territorial Reconfiguration they call themselves a multi-scale practice experimenting in made-to-measure tools and designs. Their current projects include, and here comes the transdisciplinarity, a vision for Greater Geneva, an insects museum, a mutation strategy for Paris, La Défense. Their work seems somehow both playful and subversive, while also completely serious and grounded in a real commitment to intellectual depth and engagement. And those are, I think, qualities that sometimes seem increasingly rare in contemporary design. Their projects have been nominated for the European Mies van der Rohe Award in 2009, 2014, and 2017. I asked Matthias how, in the beginning I said, because I always do this, I said, just please pronounce your last name properly for me so I don't screw it up. And he said, just call us Marc and Matthias. And I said, okay. So Matthias is an architect and urban designer who studied at ENSA Versailles, while also attending a joint master program with the Versailles Landscape Design School. A founding member and co-director of AWP, Matthias is also active in the research and experiments, including exhibitions, lectures, and publishing. He's a visiting professor at ENSA Versailles and at the Sustainable Planning Master Program. He's taught and lectured at more schools than I can list, including the Berlage, MIT, APFL, NYU, Cornell, Graz, Stuttgart, the list goes on. He's a guest juror on many European competitions. And he's the recipient of numerous awards, including the French Urban Planners Under 45 Award in 2010, the Best Young French Architects Award in 2006, and the Tony Garnier Prize by the French Academy in 2001. Marc studied philosophy at the Sorbonne, focusing on Merleau-Ponty, so we can talk about that later, and a transdisciplinary approach to phenomenology. He is actively involved in the writing of hybrids of fictions and essays and producing documentary fictions for the French public radio France Culture. He was already a member of AWP, but is now co-directing the office with his brother. He curated Paris La Nuit exhibition and authored its catalog, and is directly involved in design and planning projects at the practice. He has been a 10-year professor at Paris Malaquais Architecture School since 2009. He's published numerous books and articles and taught and lectured at APFL, Copenhagen, University of Toronto, Helsinki, and University of Winnipeg. Please join me in welcoming Marc and Matthias.
Hello, Mohsen, Join. Many thanks for this wonderful introduction. Now we know it's a terrible invitation. We don't stand a chance. We are fully relaxed. And I wonder if we are really trans enough for this. Brothers is a kind of boring statement compared to other possibilities. We have decided to do this presentation in a very obvious way. I will speak first, he will speak second, because I'm the oldest. And I'll see you later. Please make weird moves when I'm getting long and boring, but not immediately. We have a weird name, and I guess I could start with that. AWP stands for, if I do this, yes, a number of things that I'm going to talk about. But it's also just a few letters to cover up the fact that we do many things, or try to do these, and it's absolutely problematic for whoever wants to hire us. Sometimes your clients want to own you. And we have discovered they even want to own your definition. Meet my architect, meet my urbanist. Oh, you should meet Matthias, he's an artist, he's a wonderful artist. And while you might yourself not think that you're up to any of these titles, what we're trying to claim is the possibility of navigating from one position to the other in the most serious ways. More times than often, we've heard that you cannot be several things. You have to be one, and maybe you'll succeed. So maybe succeeding was not too much of a goal there. And so we continued bumping ourselves into the walls. And we got interested in accidents, our own, but also the ones that we generated, which didn't really cause too many victims, fortunately. And this is the reason why we don't want to talk about monsters tonight. This is one of them. So AWP used to be L'Atelier Wunderschön Peplum, which just meant that we were earning so little money to do such ambitious things in the beginning that we had to nickname that. So Peplum in French is the term we use for the kind of Cécile B. DeMille antique movies, 6 hour long, paper mache decor and everything. And Wunderschön, well, it was also a statement that even though I was the only guy who spoke some German, we felt we had to use this weird language to define ourselves, to make very clear that an estrangement was no stranger to us. Okay, then we have to add another part of the equation, which is Égédéon, which is a band. A band where none of the musicians could really seriously play, but was so ambitious that I had to give up singing, first of all. And although I could play guitar, I immediately turned to the drums. Matthias did basically the same thing. He turned to bass. And then we found a guy who wanted to play guitar, but when he came to the first rehearsal, he had a clarinet. Well, that was a fine accident. We thought, we're good. And I have to say very seriously that almost everything we've done since could be explained by the experience of trying to achieve music without having proper skills, proper instruments, of course not having an agent or a record company. Although this is all true, we did make a living for 6 years from music, and architecture was there, but as a hobby. Now, I know a lot of architects who play music for a hobby. We did the other thing, and sadly became an office. Yeah. Okay, these are some of the flyers you would find. You could easily describe us as a punk, jazz, post-punk band. And we did play a lot of places. This is the Drake in Toronto. It was a free gig. I know you're all looking at that, free entrance. But it's because the projections were free. Collaboration was the main issue about this band. We were just 3 people, fully aware of our limitations. So we kept inviting interesting musicians, which for some reason accepted. And one of the most regular is Rob Mazurek, that some of you who know about jazz have to know about. He currently lives in Marfa and is famously known for the Chicago Underground, various formats, duo, trio, quartet. I could go on for a while. Rob is a painter as well, and is a strange activist who has been involved in many of the office's projects over the years. So now I will just pick bits from projects to try to explain what is animating us. The first being that it was made very clear to Matthias as a student in the late 90s that there would be no work for us. Understand me, he was supposed to be one of the very best students, so he was not blaming him in particular, but more the state of the profession. And as we built this art collective, which had a central focus on landscape and contemporary territories, it became soon obvious that if you can't build, you can exercise pressures on the existing. And we didn't have a theory about how much of the existing would be reality in the 21st century, but of course now we all know that 80 to 90% of that reality is already there. So it's great to be taught to be an architect designing new things, but maybe it made sense to understand how we relate to the existing. One of the existing objects that we were confronted to was this harbor. The harbor of Dieppe was a tiny harbor, maybe 100,000 people live there. It has a gooseneck, which means that contemporary tankers cannot get in. So it's a condemned bird. And one of our first real-size urban project was trying to inhabitate the harbor. First, it was with the catalog of the first Biennale, which we produced, designed, wrote, drawn, and even spilled all over the city. Most of the works were collaborative works with widows of sailors lost at sea and other joyful people. You know, a dead harbor city is a hardcore environment, and until you manage to have fun with the people that are there, making projects is preposterous, especially when you have very, very few money to do it. So the second time we could organize this Biennale, first of all, we did raise serious money. And we also rose interest from people from all over the world who were all involved in this idea that a temporary city is maybe even better than a permanent one. And that because this harbor was 10 times the size of the city, it deserved to be taken into consideration. So they came to work for a full year, one after the other. There were workshops, there were collaborative workshops, there were experiments. A lot of the work that was done was also by sharing visions on the potential of this area when everyone said it's not going to become anything else than what it is, a massive ruin. So it's, you know, a harbor it's just a huge machine. What is a machine that doesn't work? What kind of wasteland is that? It has people all over. It has, you know, the dockers, the sailors, the companies, everything is there. The machines are brand new for a lot of them. So we managed to get the keys from a lot of the warehouses. And we invited schools from all over Europe to try and experiment how you can act as a harbor, even though not a single pineapple will get in there, ever. So it was about modeling, it was about storytelling, it was about temporary public spaces, it was about events. This is Rob Mazurek again. It was publishing a catalog. Okay, what did we learn there? That through what are called art practices, but actually was a sort of urban regeneration strategy, you could simulate an actual city in the desert. Simulate was not enough. The real point was stimulate. And to some extent, it really worked. This festival has been going on since. And not every second year, but every year. And it's taking over every single empty building that the harbor has year after year. And in a way, leaving the ship was for us a goal. You know, if we kept aboard and always bringing in all our friends from everywhere, it would be a kind of, maybe a collective hallucination. But if you leave the ship floating and you see what happens, and you've worked seriously enough, then there's a possible continuation. So I would say if the band was step one, this was the second step, where we learned that you can design emptiness, but it needs a strong control over time. It's all about sequence, about rhythm, and about interactions. This is where our interest for time grew, and we started looking at nighttime. So we, in parallel to designing our first public spaces and smaller buildings, we had this commission for studying the city at night through the lens of mobility. So we did in over 20 cities in Europe and Northern America. We tried to do it in Asia, but only succeeded last year on. Now we're working in India. We would usually find a main partner, a school, a city hall, a transport company. Around this main partner, we would gather the other stakeholders. This is in Brussels. To the left is a contemporary art critic and also a lunatic. Next to him is the head of urban planification for Greater Brussels. Then there is the head of perspective at the transport company. Then there's the head of the architecture school. And then there's a major figure at the Brussels Free University. All these people were part of a workshop that was held in a station, which works as a station during the day, but is a cultural center after 6 o'clock every day. And we started deciding which were the keys that should be played if you want to question Brussels at night. Brussels, as you know, is one of the two capitals of Europe. It's a very small capital of a very small country of Europe, which is made of almost two nations, and encounters some weird problems. It's almost like a Balkanic enclave between the rich French nation and the Dutch, who are, as you know, efficient in everything, including being themselves. So once you have gathered these people, you're ready to start working with the real people. There are students, there are artists, there are researchers, there are designers, and they care for the nighttime. Not necessarily because they've thought about it, because they have a theory about it, but they have some time to spend at walking the city at night, using transport until the very end of the line, and trying to meet the situations, even if it's an empty situation. Drawing maps that were as precise as we could. Precision needs to be redefined probably here. This is Toronto at night. This is actually the starting point, the end stations of public transit connected with the ravines. And working with that, we ended up designing a strategy for the city of Toronto, which they commissioned, but at the end of an art residence, where they are using the Nuit Blanche event, which is this one-night artistic event they hold every year, and they use it as an urban tool to activate places that are out of the map. And strangely, we had no connection to the people who curate the art. And in this case, most of what has been curated that I know is fairly not exciting and not avant-garde, although the strategy is crazy. I mean, it's ours. No, it's theirs. So that's absolutely incredible. It's like the marketing division took this like, yes, let's do it. This didn't happen in Dieppe. So it is hard to know beforehand who will play ball with you until reality is actually changing. That's a good reason for trying to make friends with all sorts of people. This is the French cultural attaché in the streets of Belgrade at 4 in the morning. In a obviously pretty amateur photo booth. This is an artist in a squat in Brussels showing documentation on migrants. This is the head of a design academy from Beijing in the Helsinki tram. He had gone wild. This is a Japanese artist depicting what she saw as the future of Japanese night. Okay, each of the projects that we ran generated actual spaces, programs, encounters. They had a decent economy, except for us. But that doesn't matter because we were there to learn. But it had also its share of, reports, publications, and discussions. I will show very shortly 2 examples of full events. The one in Rome that started with the idea of hijacking public transport. So there was an international convention on nighttime policies held at the city hall. We came in at the dessert and we said, everyone out, get on the buses. So as you understood, our program was called the Troll Protocol. So disrupting was what we were aiming at. When you would be on the buses, you could hear the radio. There was a live program about this event. And actually, if you called the radio, you could ask the buses to pick you up somewhere in Rome. One of the steps of this story was that the police would block us as we tried to go on a ramp, a motorway ramp, and we had to walk on it for quite a bit, which is absolutely impossible. This ramp is hated by the Romans, and it became one of these suspended gardens that probably Rome had on the Aventino a long time ago. The fact that we hijacked the convention made it that we had a lot of mayors, transport authority representatives, all sorts of people that felt they were so important. And all of a sudden, you're on this ramp. And back on the bus and going to Corviale, which is this 1 kilometer long slab that even if you live in Milano, if somebody steals your Vespa, you say fucking Corviale. No, it's the obvious place where any wrongdoing comes from in Italy. So the stalker observatory, nomadic observatory, which collaborated to the project, sent this postcard to all the residents, inviting them to a collective installation, not on the front facade, but in the back, where everybody would pick a candle and walking along this 1 kilometer long hill would just display the candle in a small paper bag with sand in it so that the candle wouldn't fall. And you had this constellation of stars. On a 1 kilometer long scale is incredible. So most of the residents would actually look at it from their windows. But they also came down, with the hoodies and everything. You would be a little bit like shaking. What's going on? And they were really excited. And it's been since a place where weddings are held. Back on the bus again to La Pineta Sacchetti, which is a known junkie rendezvous at night. And of course, everyone's supposed to be boozed up there. There was no one. There's never anybody. The reputation is actually making this an empty area in the city. So we installed its pixel gardens, which were put into music by Tal Haddad here, guiding you to another of these virtual, semi-virtual gardens. And you would be served a cornetto and a coffee, which you do actually if you're clubbing in Rome at 3, 4 in the morning. So it was 3, 4 in the morning. And then everyone went back to their hotels, and the convention started the next morning, and we had to explain ourselves. Not everybody was happy. Surprisingly, it was a great night. There were thousands of Romans that joined on the buses, but also with cars. And there was an exhibition at Olivetti Foundation. I'm describing this in detail. Oh, I'm sorry. This is interesting. But I don't know how to come back. Maybe that's good. Okay. It was interesting. And very quickly, in Helsinki, in this case, the white round shape is where you can have access most of the time with the tram. Outside of that, it's a desert after 10 in the evening. So we started working on the idea that we would use the trams and then from the end station start to walk and try to go somewhere. And everybody came depressed, saying it's so beautiful, it's incredible, the nature is everywhere, and the motorways are also. But we didn't see anything to make a project with. Except there was somebody from the city hall who said, we're running this study on these small shopping malls, which very soon after we called the smalls. And they were designed according to regulations by Alvar Aalto in the 50s, and they were supposed to be village centers in the modernist extensions of the city. And now they're outscaled by the major malls because you have like maybe 30 parking spaces only for each of these small malls. And we started going back and visiting them during daytime. And what we could see there was really disheartening. Most of the shops were either dying or dead. So that gave us an idea to create a transport system to connect these malls in the eastern part, which is supposedly the rough one, which means there was a gunshot last year. That's too much, right? Bus line again, collaboration with JC Deco advertisement company. So the catalog of the event was in all the bus stops of eastern Helsinki for a week, which was incredibly cool for us. It was astonishing. When the city becomes the host of your manifesto, and I don't mean mine, it was more than 100 people that had been working for a full year and a half to get there. So it was really rewarding, although it was minus 17 degrees Celsius. So this is one of the smalls. We created a temporary nighttime planning office, which sort of made a case for what we were defending. More public services should be open in the smalls, and they should do it at night. basically time sharing these spaces. The guy on top to the right is an engineer working for the transport authority of the city, who was there because he was so drunk that he took the wrong bus, although it said Helsinki Troll on the top. But that was not enough to tell him that it was not his bus. So he was with us all night, and he knew so much about the city that he was actually lecturing everybody, although he was dead drunk. But, you know, the Finns, they're pretty solid people. We had a media center, we had a canteen, because we wanted to tell this small association that was helping people who were too much hooked on booze that if they close at 6 p.m., maybe it's not really helping. And if they could close, let's say, at midnight, maybe it's helping much more. So they gave us the key and they ran away. So I don't know if we helped them, but we did have a canteen there, and that was really nice. That's the media center, which was displaying, with help from Nokia, what was happening in the different malls. It was at that time very cool to send films via cell phone. Yeah, 2005. Some buildings were set alive. It was a nighttime. Too long to explain. An exhibition. We always do this. You know, there's the event, but there's also the catalog. There's also the exhibition. There's also the lectures. There's also the seminar. I mean, it's pretty classic in a way, although the main event is not. And these are two old DJs playing Finnish tango at the end of the evening. It's like 5 a.m, and it's a club which is a non-profit club. So basically, they cannot sell alcohol. So you're in a club, but you're drinking green tea. Okay, I'm almost done with this first phase. You might say, why didn't you work on Paris? Actually, in Paris, we got the same question. So the Center for Architecture of the City of Paris invited us to design an exhibition on public space. And then, as we discussed with them, say, no, but you have also to present what you think about contemporary conditions of the public space. And we said, no, but design and thinking, it should be the same thing. So basically, this design is an inflated structure that is breathing in the air of Paris and then purifying it and then getting rid of it back into the air, probably changing the reality for good. No, but it was a metaphor, right? But the interesting part is, as you breathe the air in, the cushions that were in between the two membranes would grow thick, and then the images would be neat. And then when you exhale, you become a blur object. And that was the only thing we had to say about public space. It's the possibility of creating this crystallization, of making space, of providing emptiness that we believed in. And we also did a lot of funny drawings that were explaining that in a creative way, but I think it was less powerful than the overall design. But interestingly, we were selected, I'm sorry for the quality of this image, in Geneva to apply these statements. This is an industrial area in the south part of the city, which is also closest to an 18th century Italian design area called Carouge. Very, very beautiful. So it's a strange encounter of warehouses, logistical train hub, offices. There's a Rolex facility there. There's also a huge police station, which is actually a small jail, depending on how you look at it. And all these programs were actually ready to move out in 50 years. That's kind of long. And if you're French, it's unthinkable. If you make a decision, everybody's out in 10 minutes. In Switzerland, you don't do that. So we in a way fitted with this mission, which was all you have is public space and mobility to activate a transformation that will go on at least for the next 40 years. So with what do you start? So this is just to say that there's an applied dimension to this research, and T stands here for time 1, time 2, etc. Showing how first we design local possibilities, then we network them, and then finally they become a full system. And at one point, I was completely run down by all these nighttime things, so I ended up in some strange hospital. And when I came back a month later, they had started doing it. So this is Switzerland, people take a decision seriously, and they have the means to implement, and they have the imagination too. But it was an extraordinary experience. Usually the urbanist keeps saying, that's the thing you should do. And everybody's like, yeah, and they're not doing it. And in this case, we were not even there to say, you said you would do it, right? And they did it. So it helps also not to be in a permanent state of fight against the powerful one, the one that has the money, the right-wing asshole. Okay. Some of these guys are actually useful to understand what is possible and not understand. And then you discover they read just as many books as you did, and there are many not exactly who you thought they were. They're probably worse in some ways, but they're also much more interesting in others. So I will now just play the images very fast. This is the exhibition that we finally did on Paris at night. The images were insane because it's an under-researched subject. This is the atlas that we have put together by the documentation. We found over a 6-year period. This is what the book looks like. Any publisher in the house? It would be great to have an English version. This is the historical atlas. Every single event in this city at night since the French Revolution until now is drawn here, either as a position or as a movement. And it goes from logistics to urban works, restructurations of the streets, party, but party is just one aspect of the nighttime. Okay, this is, these are just, it's a 500 pages book. It's a thick research. It was so exciting to do. And also because the interaction we have with Matthias is always trying to make the other more precise. Why do you say that? No, an architect would never do that. Yes, but a philosopher this, but I'm not a philosopher here, I'm more an historian. No, you're not an historian. We are here to tell the city of Paris what they have to do tomorrow. Yes, but that's the end of the book, and etc. So it was a 6-year exciting discussion where, in a way, we wrapped up everything that we've learned elsewhere and trying to put it together. And why didn't we start with Paris? It's because it's such an iconic nocturnal city. And because we didn't want to fall in the traps of, commenting Pigalle and Montmartre and the French girls at night, and it was unbearable, right? But in the end, it turns out to be so much more interesting. To put it in one sentence, you cannot understand the phenomena of modernity if you just think it worked with the decisions made by Haussmann and the poetry written by Baudelaire. Because in this scope, there are definitely the poles, but in the middle, you had all the interactions. And you have so many businesses that were created to animate the city at night. You have so many political organizations that could only meet at night. It was an incredible intensity that can only be explained by the fact that there were neither weekends nor even holidays. So basically, you had no other choice than to have a second life after hours. As a result, a lot of these people who were really the avant-garde of the 19th and early 20th century sort of killed themselves. And you have this, expression of the how do you call it, les poètes maudits? It's there. The spelled, the poets under a spell, right? They're not under a spell. They're just not sleeping enough. That's the thing. They were physically exhausting themselves to death. What did we learn from that? Well, that we had to look at the metropolis at its current scale. Over 500 people joined us. As you can see, it was a lot about infrastructures, networks, logistics, parkings, techniques, transport. It was about the suburbs, which are not no-go zones, but you don't watch Fox. So anyway, you haven't heard that. It was insane. All the incredible people we met. The guy with the kebab shop who held all the recipes from his mother, but had his wife do the dessert because she was Italian, and he couldn't trust his Algerian mother on desserts. And, you know, all that. And then La Défense, which Matthias will tell you more about in a second. You know, the city at night, in a way, is a gigantic wasteland. But it's also the decor for the intense city. It's the same stage. So that's more tricky than, you know, looking at an area that is fenced and says no trespassing and has a polluted ground and et cetera and et cetera. All these things that we make design with. Nighttime is a huge wasteland. This is a bus stop in front of the Melun prison. It's such a quiet place that you find lovers all the time hugging and kissing in the bus stop. You might ask, how do you know that? I'm not saying. This is a Chinese investment known to be money laundering, but whatever. It's a concrete boat, which is also a hotel, a restaurant, a disco, at the encounter of two rivers. So, yeah, 6 years of exploration. What do you do? Many of these pictures are made by people that you never saw again. They just came once. They uploaded the material. What did we go through? What happened in every space? What did we collect? Can we map this? So this is where we meet with the cops, we meet with the transport authorities, we meet with whoever we can meet to draw these maps. These were non-existing representations of nighttime. There's mobility, logistics, networks, employment, etc., etc. This is how it appears in the book. Each chapter dedicated to a subject. And this is finally what we try to say in terms of project design or strategy design. First, there are tons of things to learn from history and be inspired with. There are practices, there are urban configurations or agencies, and there are architectures. Of course, 99% of these things are gone. The people, but also the designs. It's as if nighttime physicality spaces are erasable, even more easily than others. Then there is mapping this reality and trying to extract qualities, problems, neutralized areas, in particular, whatever is expressing conflict, because this is where you want to start designing from. And then there is the real tool. And strangely, every single project we've been doing since we designed this, it's almost a joke. You know, it's a mixing table. But the mixing table appeared to say something about wanting to tackle complexity. If you don't want to reduce complexity, as in many, many, many ways urbanists want to do, they want to do the project which is about only this thing, because they can be heard, because they can talk about it, and make shorter lectures than I do. But the truth is, it is complex and it's there. And if you want to cope with the existing, it's always too much. So a mixing table is what you do if you want to live with complexity, and not with the whole of it at the same time, but trying to develop a kind of finesse. And this is where all the music learning comes back. It's about rhythm, sequence, etc. So we had identified sites where the greater Paris could reinvent itself at night, which were showcased in this bizarre nocturammas. And now I will hand the mic to Matthias, knowing that the greater Paris is a huge political question, but has been also the subject of many competitions. And we could say that we contributed it through the Greater Paris at Night, the Greater Paris of Time Flexibility. This was organized by the same team that did Greater Paris. And we were one of the sites, but also the sort of script writer of the event. We did the same thing on water and waste, on deck urbanism, 1960s and 70s. This is in Frankfurt, redesigning the entire southern part of the region around the forest, which is there because there are airplanes flying over it, so you can't build anything. And smaller projects, but where we are implementing the same concepts. This is an area that will be in transformation for the next 25 years. And the empty lots and abandoned buildings were offered in a competition where every architect has to bring in the investors, the programs, but also people who will live there, the companies that will open the shops in the row floor, and etc. So it's that these are the new competitions that are coming up all the time in France at the moment. So in a way, everything we've learned at the different scale or at the encounter of the very large and the very small scale fits very well with rethinking these golden teeth that you're asked to add up the more generic mouth. And this is for a competition on major squares in Paris. And this is not, I mean, it's closer to here than to Paris. It's the art park in Buffalo. We were part of this competition in the first stages, not in the final one, fortunately. Okay.
Few seconds of our music. I mean, he tries to introduce, why not put some music? Nothing about project. Nighttime, maybe, because we play at night, but maybe we'll try to do a second version. We discussed maybe to do exactly the same lecture, but what would I say with the same slides and what he could say about other slides. It's important also for us to show you maybe how to make a project with that kind of, I mean, what is a project, but design. Is it possible to use the same tools of maybe that kind of collage and investigation way, depth of nighttime and very complex situation. So we will have a look to just one project and I will try to unfold and to describe it. So because it's one, there is a small introduction. It's about ground, because in the middle of our project of landscape and planning, and also building, we might try to discuss about it. Where is the ground? Is the definition of the ground, it could be a part of being an architect or not. You could be planners, designers, landscape designers, depends of the word in French, but also architect. Where is the ground? What is the ground? It's not so easy. For instance, in this case, and it will come back, it's a very important moment. First, because hopefully the American army came at the end of the war, the first war, but because of this ground, this mess, the mud, immediately, engineers in the army, the US Army, has developed decks, platforms, and a new typology that became very important in the modernist history. It was not described at all before. It was in some drawings, different grounds, but not decks, not fake grounds, new grounds. It came from that. In fact, in history, you could have like Opéra Garnier, not to take a normal example of architecture, but a classical one. Where is the ground? Which ground is important? You have several grounds, history of grounds. This ground, this is La Seine River, a small one, was in fact the level of the ground, and for the opening, everyone went out with small gondolas from this, like a hidden underground. It was so exciting to use it. Where is the ground in the history of architecture, without doing it too heavily today or with you, but we are very excited by this moment, and maybe also to offer you this. One of the books we love is this Xenakis. He was a great architect with Le Corbusier, and he became a great composer, music composer, very important. But just in the middle of it, he has made a few installations, how to unbuild things, like black holes. He thought, and he wrote several things, we met him several times, that it was important not to build anymore, but to do just environmental landscape or situation. It was enough. We built too many things. And then, and it's coming a lot from here, the States or in the 80s, how to play with the ground or play with the city. Is it possible everywhere, and how? So the question is starting always with a scandal, always with a fun or a disaster. We had several years ago a president, a French president, a bit similar as you have one now, a sort of strange. This was Sarkozy at this time. He was not orange, he was different. And he has this idea to give to one of his sons a very important position. It was a surprise and a scandal, too much. It was, so I just show this not against him or the situation, but suddenly if you do real projects and planning, you deal with the French president very quickly and with the son of the French president. But also because the scandal was too high in Paris, they had to do something. They had to change. And the way to change was to give us, we were already in the competition to try to design the CBD of Paris, the largest CBD in France, the largest CBD in Europe, maybe in the world. It's a French thing. It's a big CBD. And we wanted to win it and to try to make a project with that kind of very aggressive and maybe, for instance, at night, a very strange area. And we won it also because of the scandal. They need to change, to find a new team, another position. What is La Défense? Take a flight, but it's just designed on a great axis. If the king was able to shoot any English people or something like that, and it became a figure or typology. La Défense is known for a few monuments, or also because it's like a business district you have here, for instance. There is one in Boston or several. But the size of it is a bit special. And also because it's Paris for events or flight position. Many people are coming in Paris until the 80s, and La Défense was really a matrix for many cities. Still now, like Shanghai, or they are fascinated by La Défense. They want to copy it. They buy all the urbanists and architects, French or not, that they already work on La Défense, and they ask us to do exactly what we done on La Défense. So it's interesting because it was a surprise. We won with the references, the Book of Nighttime, the Troll project, nothing else. And after a few weeks, we were extremely well paid. It was the biggest competition, urban competition in Paris, something really great. So unlimited budget, do a movie. You are able to make a movie, something new, fast. Few weeks, we used a few first weeks to understand where is the ground. It was a question. Really, it's not so easy to understand where is the ground or the public ground. And our surprise, and it's very important in history of that kind of typology is, and you can find it in Netherlands, in England, and still building it in the south of US 2 or 3 times a year, smaller size, but exactly the same. Where is the ground? Here, not here, 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 here. In fact, slowly, all what is underground, facilities, but also a few programs are halfly underground or has been built overground to make it cheaper, and because of that has created a deck. And over it, everything is private. Also because we have this problem of private things. So the basement is public, but it's overground. Underground, overground. Okay. So for instance, at the 9th level, you have caves. And this very beautiful monument, the Danish architect has a problem to show where was the ground, the major ground. He showed 3. Let's have a look. So we ask for time to understand. Maybe we will make a movie, for sure, and nice pictures, but we need time. Where is the ground? Where is the ground? Where is the ground? For instance, here, the official ground is the slab, or the deck level, or in fact, I don't exactly know what is the right word of it. It seems you have several, depends of cities and projects. This is the official. So this tower, well, this is the ground, and the soil, the ground, but this is underground, meaning that if you want to live in, working, you have the law of the underground, fire exit, or it's too expensive, so it's empty. But not one time, everywhere, empty, empty, empty. And it's so huge, so half public, half private. Nobody knew about it. After a few weeks, we found thousands of square meters empty. This is a major road, public road. This is, this is a major, well, they gave this to a private company, but it's not on the map. It's a gift, but it's underground, so nobody knows about it. This is a major entrance for the metropolitan, for the richest city in the west of Paris. Nice. Where are we, in fact? Where are we? It's so big. We needed 4 months. So we negotiate 4 months. And this question of time in the process, and not only as a tool or a solution. You gave us so much money, or also advertising. We had like articles, and we were followed sometimes by the cameras of the local TV, and we brought them there. There. And finally, we found the ground, or maybe the soil, ground level, empty. And just in the middle of it, an art piece, completely unknown or abandoned, huge, and the title of it is The Monster. So we have one monster. And we came back, and in front of our client, official one, a commission with a large board, and we said, your business district is a monster. And we need time to understand what kind of monster it is. And they accepted. The monster was fun. In French, it sounds fun. It's so different. And they wanted something different. But they asked us to go faster, like, I need to do it. But a monster, and how to deal with. And why it is a monster also, it's not because it's ugly, it's big, it's complex. It's because after a few weeks, it's not only to walk on the site and to be at nighttime. It's exactly the same as nighttime to map in, to make it precisely. Everything that Marc showed and what will be on the screen has been designed by the office. We are a tiny office of 10 or 15 people, great people, always the same, some partners, friends. But we take time, and a part of the money we paid for to redraw and recontabilize everything, because we discover specifically in this project, and it will come back, like the data the client gave you at the beginning, in this case specifically, are completely wrong. Like, for instance, you have 20,000 inhabitants. After a few weeks, you go on site and you find maybe 6,000. The others are died, and they still vote. And it's just a joke like that, but everything is a bit blurred. Is it voluntary or is it clear? Nobody knows, but because it has been designed before a computer area or period, we don't really have details. So we had to, and we go on site, and we took chronometers, or we took pictures of everything. Why to do that? It's because it helps us a lot to fight with the site, and also to have time, because it's so complex. This is a map of a walk with inhabitants and officials, underground, overground. We do it at night, underground at night, still at night. During the day, it's nighttime, twice. Overground, nighttime or daytime. And it's so complex. Like, for instance, Google is not able to make a map of it. It's the only place in Paris. Well, after a few months, we had this phone call at 10 o'clock a Thursday night, and they said, okay, we like you very much about your things and your brother and your music, and but don't you have any project or something, please? Your monster is not enough. Tomorrow morning at l'Élysée, we don't know if the president will be there, but bring something. So we brought, and we show you just, I think it's interesting for the students here, 5 documents. After 5 months, we just have 5 documents. We have the monster, we have thousands of pictures, we have already engaged a large visit and also a co-situation with inhabitants and users, but we just have 5 small documents. Fear of the project? Maybe, but fear to be out of the scope. Everything was wrong, data was wrong, so we need time. We just have this. Not the best one, but first, Mr. President and, officials. You don't have a slab and a normal CBD district. You have the biggest building in Europe, and maybe in the world, because it's not a slab, it's a roof and a ground. Not linear, not easy to deal with, but maybe in between those 2 lines in the section, you have one unique, because of history or something, but overground building, and it's public. It's yours. Okay. Second slide. Done with 2 young students, trainees. They were from GSD at this time, and we done something a bit Dutch, very simple but so efficient. It's to compare La Défense to London. If you're French, you compare to London. This is quite strong. If you compare and you said it's always better in London, alors, okay, how much money you need? And we had plenty of examples, but we took someone we are interested. We don't know the city, but it's a sort of dream to go in Portland and visit it. But also in our audience situation, like 20, 30 officials, nobody knew about Portland. It's always plus. Okay, how much money you need? It's not possible to hear about that. This is so powerful to earn money, power in the meeting, but nothing about design. This works too. It's a longer presentation we have made, but sorry. So if it's a modernist situation, why not? Let's talk about Le Corbusier. The best building is, well, very classical one, is La Cité Radieuse in Marseille. You should come and visit it, it's so fantastic. But on La Cité Radieuse, if you take it exactly like it is, and if you do ETH, typology transfer, so cool attitude that is now ongoing in Europe, why not? You could do 100 times. 100 times of what? Very simply, 100 times of an art gallery sport design, school, 100 times of exactly all what La Défense doesn't have. They just forgot it. They made the biggest building or unlogical building, maybe in Paris and not in Europe, not in the world, but very big. Forgetting to make it, trying to make it also private. We don't know how to make private things, so they just forgot to do basic things. Okay, but modernist movement is a problem in France, and mainly for officials. It could be known as a failure. So Le Corbusier, is it really a good example? So we have something much better, Barcelona. So Gaudi, and we took time to explain how as much the bench is beautiful, yes, in the Parc Güell, but it's a technologic, environmental situation. So it's a huge tank of water, it's a fantastic public space, has sort of qualities that La Défense doesn't have, but could have. And because it's Barcelona in Paris, it's like a dream. It's like Paris, but with sunshine. So how much do you want? Tac. The fourth document is a bit strange. We won the competition and we told the client that we will do a BIM, or a 3D complete map of the La Défense. We will try to do it. It was written like that by Marc. We will try. So we bought a very big computer. And once, well, it collapsed. It was maybe the way we've done it. We are not technicians, but it was too complex. And the only drawing we kept is one of the only drawing we kept is this one. And we love it. And we thought it was important. We print it almost at this scale to bring it to our clients. A huge presentation of this without saying anything. The previous one was a long discussion, presentation to earn money, time. But this one just like that. And we knew, because we knew the type of comments we wanted. It's because it looks like a Roman antique or sort of strange ruin system or a monument situation. And they said it. Our client, the bankers, we have a monument. Is it really as beautiful as... They said, as beautiful as this. It was the best drawing for them. A dream. Pestum. Okay. So we have a monument. It's just under the slab. It's a drawing under the slab, the previous drawing. And the final drawing we came with, so in the middle of 5, is the sort of the map with all what we learned during the first months. We said we don't want to make a project, but we put on, when people say I'm cold, I'm afraid of, but also I'm closed at night, I'm open during the weekend, every data on the same block, and we call it the monster. We start to do a small a game on the cell phone, and we gave it to all the politicians and say, maybe it's ugly, but you have to learn to play and to open it to the population and also the bankers, the main actors, to play with the site because it's too complex. And just in the middle of that, you have some informations like 36 escalators has been built because of the height of the slab. 36 mechanical stairs. You know mechanical stairs, this great invention, this Remcoula stream. Well, when it rains, but also with ice, it is broken after a few days. 36 escalators in Paris. They don't know how to use it, maybe, I don't know. Huh? But just 6 of them, the best months of our study, and the study was during 4 years at the end, 6 of them were working. It's a super rich area. It's not a question of money, but just teams, how to repair it, to rebuy it. We said this time we will try to make a new master plan without any escalator. Let's try to do that. It's a chance for public administration. We love escalator, but who is going to pay? So, this is us. We almost managed to, because of those 5 slides, I had a fantastic audience. really, it's really a surprise for me, for Marc, and all our team. We'd like to have time to tell names because we really work. It's a small but very active team, but we became, during years, the master of La Défense without a project. After a few months, we had a second call and could you make a project? So we've done a project. Okay, it's the best project. It has been published everywhere in France. It's very beautiful. We think it's the best. You will do another one, and it's the best. We asked for time to make a second project. This was for communication, to have one. And after 4 years, so very long time after that, we managed to make the project that was needed by the site. And our team, what can we do? And also that kind of contract in France, we have like 9 years of contract. And we say that after 4 years, we have to go away. Also, it was a bit hard to live in La Défense, to work in La Défense every day. And we decided to quit and to do a document strong enough for the teams, the administration, to do it by themselves. And it's going on now. So this is a key plan. It's not a master plan. I don't know exactly the translation, a key plan, or it's a huge box of tools and how to deal with. So you have master plan, you have 3Ds, you have movies, you have text, but also mainly you have a toolbox, how to deal with the site and to react. And on this major map, so you have time, but also you have like, this is a zoom, 3 colors. And everywhere, every scale, so we went till a very precise scale of money, time, and it's where it's possible to make in yellow a project, or it's necessary, possible, necessary. This is still open, but we describe it. In blue, it's a monument, but not everywhere. And it's absolutely not a monument for the moment, but we have decided that we said the blue must be kept and redraw or negotiate. The gray, we don't have nothing to say about it. You can do it or wait to do something. There's strong, very strong and bizarre attitude in master planning to redraw every part of the drawing you give. It was before, and I have a solution for tomorrow. We have solutions for this area, but not here. We studied precisely enough to know that, in a way, any kind of project could fit or could discuss with, but we will not change it. And we have decided it was completely open. We could have made like a big tower here or something. It details the major success of this key plan is because it's a kind of a success in France. It became a sort of you have to do key plans, like the method of AWP. And this moment is not to propose just one solution, but to show where is the intense spot to develop something, but to leave it as open as possible for architects or bankers. So we don't do any axonometric vision or anything. We give a final document with as many drawings and details in the diagnostic as in the final key plan. The project is here. This is square meters, landscape, streetscapes, softscape, time, money, security, culture. I don't remember all of them. We usually we were paid to do that, but we just made those small, we call them Tintin, I mean small comic strips. How to use the master plan, how to do it, because in France, in La Défense area, you have like 2,000 people for the public administration, so many people. So this is for lightning, this is for politicians, this is for urbanists, this is for architects. And we felt it was necessary. In many competitions, we win many. Those we win, and we won before. And when we have a phone call, usually it's because the client doesn't know what to do. They even don't have any focus or anything. Maybe could you come and work for 1 year or 2 years in our city? Is it about landscape? Is it about art festival? It depends. This is a box. And this is us. Remember this. We went to the hospital. It was quite tough to do it, and our teams, we were completely yes. And just as a small conclusion, and also in a way, monster, or is it really monster at the end if you know how to deal with? But I wanted to not to stay on just planning and we have tools and we know how to deal with politicians because we dream and we do music and we have fun with it and some tools. We also have it in our studio and with friends, architects. We use it as also a grid of just aesthetic position, and we bring back from our surveys, in a way, visions, and we try then to copy them in other buildings. So it's like a school, a workshop situation, and I will show you a few examples. Sorry, this now. So I will go quicker, and just to show you one example of a new competition we won in Netherlands, because we learn of La Défense many tricks and ideas, but also mainly to adapt the type of document we have to develop to, in a way, to make much more graphic and artistic things we trust in to support our position and not to lose time. We remember the phone call of 10 p.m. the Thursday night, come with a project. So now we do very, very quick things and very simple things to have something also to show, because it doesn't work always not to have plenty of things. So now we bought 20 of those suitcases, looks like official or banker suitcase, and we hide in it our project to be like our client, but in it we are dreamers, architects. So we come each time with this kind of mallet, and we open it like pop-up, and it could be a building, or this is a master plan in Netherlands. Just 1 minute. So I can show you just one detail of it. It's another movie, just because it's a way to show how nighttime came back in our project. This very large, huge master plan, we have proposed several things, but the first one is about one night design enough to engage the site in the identity or the direction we think it's important for the next years. So it's like the beginning of a story, or writing the story of the site. And we try nighttime because it's a white sand, huge wasteland, but the sand is so white that with black lights. So we imagine plenty of black lights, like in a discotheque, but outdoor. And we have done it several times, and it will react and create a sort of so poetic, just a cool night. But the places we started to build a few things are the base for the project and a way to test them. And we show this, to the parliament in Netherlands and to the politicians. And just we do on the side a very precise document with many things, square meters, and we do it, but I don't think it's so important to show you that. It's more an office work than our La Défense work and drawings, we have this strange thing to bring it now in every project, every city we work on, and we paste it. We don't have really a solution for that. It's just a dream, or for children, it's a cool book to put colors on. But in Switzerland, it's my book of teaching of planning. I don't know. We've done it again in Mumbai for a nighttime situation last year. And to make it, to graph it, we've done this. And we use it at the office, like IDs or this. We won a competition for a facade. So suddenly, the tool or the dreams or the monsters are just gift, tools to do the master plan, but gift for us as a normal creative office. So we co-develop. So we are not going to open a book and say we want to do that plus that. It's coming from monsters. La Défense, Frankfurt. Years of walking at night in Frankfurt gave us so many images, and then we copy-paste very quickly because of the 10 o'clock p.m. ringing client moment to make it fast, simple, fast, simple, fast, simple, fast, simple. This is co-designed with our friends HHF. They are teaching here. It's an insect museum. Et voilà. It's the same for us. It's brothers' visions. And sometimes it's architecture. Merci beaucoup.
I mean, I can think of a few questions, but I think, given the time, I just want to see if there's a few questions from the audience. If not, I can start, but... Anyone? No? Yeah, in the back.
Because it's Thursday, I get to speak without the accent. Come back tomorrow, and I can do the French one too.
What else? Any other thoughts? I mean, I think just to sum up, we learned one thing for sure, which is if you want the policymakers to give you money, you make them feel slightly ashamed about some part of their city, right? But I think the other main theme that came out for me is kind of obvious, but you didn't actually address it directly at all, which is a kind of fluorescence, artificial light, which there's, of course, the fascination with the night, but the fascination with the night only comes with the artificial light. And we think about this as it's such a fundamental part of the city. And I wonder, in this long history that you did, at what point the artificiality emerged?
One thing that is really, really exciting to understand is how little light there was until 150 years ago. So there has been this new erogenous zone for the landscape scale that appeared. Imagine if we could be gifted with another sense. And this is pretty much what happened. So there are pre-existing situations such as fireworks. And fireworks have been designed by architects since a very long time ago. This is why Bernard Chaumy designed his own firework when he opened La Villette, because it was obviously a continuation of the park's design. So I don't know if this is an answer, but it's a very fundamental dream of the architect to take a hold of the air. You know, every architect knows we're being kind of pathetic, just dealing with walls. What about the rest?
I don't know. In the question, you have like the black light. you talk about a trance or something, and a black light is so strange. So he reveals like white shirt or opposite things, and sort of, you know, for documents or for paper, for money, suddenly you have the real information or something hidden. And maybe it's a part of our job in the city. But just as a designer, it's so cool, black light. So it's always sort of...
It's also extremely limited. It's incredible how few options you have to manipulate the nighttime. Everything is restricted in terms of laws. Even your senses are limited, but technically, it's a very poor moment. So for that reason, in part, I think architects have been despising nighttime a lot. And Le Corbusier specifically wrote after he came back from his trips to the States that you had to be an American to enjoy the nightscape. You know, like Broadway, okay. But they're like this big kids, you know, and that's why they like it. But we, the serious people, it's incredible. So he basically chopped an arm away by saying,
we could say
we like the sunlight and that's it, and that's enough.
The exhibition, the Marc exhibition of our office, but nighttime in Paris was the biggest success for the Museum of Architecture. But also we had like a big comments from our friends architects. Where is the architecture? Why don't you show projects? It's not really architecture. Yes.
Any other thoughts, or otherwise we can conclude our day? Yeah, there's maybe why don't we close it out for now, and then I think the brothers are willing to stay up for a bit. Yeah, okay. Thank you all of our visitors. I hope you felt welcome today, and congratulations again on your admission to Harvard. And for those of you who are here for tomorrow, welcome if you've arrived this evening, and we hope you have a good day tomorrow. So thank you very much.